Thank you for staying with us. It is still iBrand Daybreak. We're still taking a look at the current economic situation in the country and the effect that it has continued to have on, of course, individuals and the unemployed, the employed, or small business operators, to say the least, is perplexing and confusing. Inflation continues to worsen. The cost of living of the populace eroding the purchasing power of citizenry with no succor in sight. Even though inflation is a concept that affects all of us, most importantly, high inflation is hostile to even the economy. More lower income earners are likely to replace healthier food options with what is available, which could be toxic and detrimental to health. Because cost of living crisis affects more than just our bank account, it hurts and affects mental health, and it increases worry and anxiety. And of course, to further have this conversation with us is a public health expert in the person of Prince Badamosi. He'll be having this analysis with us. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
All right. I did establish the fact that we live in a very hostile times when it comes to the economy and finances and how it's affecting families. You are a public health expert. And I also did mention how that people now have even less access to healthy food options. How do you react to this situation?
Let me start by reminding us the definition of inflation. The situation where too much money is running after a few goods. And you can see what happened immediately after the subsidy removal. You see, prices just skyrocketed without corresponding increase in income. Now, what do you expect? Those things you buy at little too much before now went very high. It means access to good food is limited. It means people tend to go for what they can afford. And mind you, if you go on the streets now, what we have on the streets now, that means the so-called affordable foods now, they're not healthy. Not healthy.
All right, so we're actually looking at the access to food. You did mention, as you were just talking, that people will not go ahead to buy whatever is available. I mean, it's the reality of everybody living in Nigeria right now. You eat what is available and not what is necessarily healthy. People have gone ahead to substitute eating fresh caught vegetables and food from the farm to eating tinned and sealed packaged food, which a lot of times, have been said to be not so healthy and even very cancerous if you start to look at the eventual aftermath of these products. How would you advise that, people be able to manage their pocket and still eat healthy? Do you see that possible in this situation?
Very possible. Let me come from this angle. Number one, each time you go to the street and you find fruits, pepper, farm produce, as the case may be, there are 3 types. Your mango 3 types, your pepper 3 types, cucumber 3 types. Are you surprised? You have the original breed, which is called local. Then you have hybrids. Then we have what's called genetically modified organisms. Now, genetically modified organisms are not good for consumption. Why? Because they carry certain genes that is resistant to antibiotics. And such genes can be transferred to man upon consumption. Can be transferred to animal upon consumption, which over time, because the person consuming it become resistant to antibiotics. Now, that is why I'm coming, the angle I'm looking at. Now, we go to your market now, you see local food, you want to buy it because it's not as big as, the local, as the hybrid. Now, I said local, hybrid, and GMO.
Modified, yeah.
The GMO and hybrid, they look alike. Now, when we started with subsistence farming, it's just you farm, I farm, to feed our family. Now, as population increases, imagine Mr. A marries Mr. B and population increases. When I marry my wife now, we are only 2. And by God's will, we are able to give more than 2. Population increases. Then there was a challenge of food. In order to avoid that, the scientists now went to the laboratory and give us hybrid, genetic engineers, which is good. That one can give us more yield per hectare than ordinary food. But then, they can reproduce. They are good. Hybrid, they go very good. But now, as population increases again, now genetic engineering now came up with this concept of modified the genes of this thing that can give you higher yield. Unfortunately, it came with its negativity, which is this resistance to antibiotics. Now, you get to markets now. The challenge we have, that's why I say people now go for what they can access. What you can access now is that GMO and it's available. How do you now know the difference? The important difference that you can locate is that they don't reproduce. GMO don't reproduce. You will agree with me that at the time, you buy a yam and that yam, after some time in your kitchen, starts growing. Have you noticed that? Mm-hmm. Then at another time, you buy another yam. Instead of that yam to start growing, the yam will get spoiled. I've heard people saying that it's fertilizer. And I want people to get it right now that it's not. Fertilizer, what it does is to give you the nutrient that is lacking in the soil at the point in time. But then, the GMO, they don't reproduce. Instead of to reproduce, it will get spoiled. The yam in your kitchen that start growing is normal, is good, it's either hybrid or local, because it has broken what they call dormancy. Dormancy of yam, for example, is 90 years. I mean, it's 90 days, rather, 90 days. After 90 days, under normal condition, it will start growing. Inside soil or outside, I mean, on top of the soil, it will start growing.
So it's normal for you to see a yam you kept in your kitchen for some days growing out, maybe sprouting leaves and all that is normal?
Perfectly good. Okay. If it's a genetically modified, it won't grow. It will start getting spoiled. So it's abnormal.
So that the one that gets spoiled is the genetically modified.
Most likely, genetically modified.
So it's not established when you say most likely?
Yeah, most likely, yeah.
So how safe is one now, especially with buying or consuming such kind of crops?
Thank you. Like for example, now, there was time I went to, I think it was around La Roadside that time. I saw a pepper seller, radiant insecticide. He writes in my front like this. Insecticide on pepper, that's on the counter. And I said, but why? He said, you want to kill all these insects now? People now buying this. They don't know. That I remember that if you go to markets now, and you discover that you saw maybe 2 baskets of or bowl of beans, one has insects, other one doesn't have insects. I will advise to go for the one with insects, because that one shows that insecticides that was poured, that one has expired.
Oh, not like there is no insecticide on it.
Which will attract an average person. Are you getting me now? Go for the one that has insects. But I tell people, if you buy beans now, before you start consuming it in your house, make sure you see one insect inside. It shows that there's absence of chemical.
That brings me to the issue where I stumbled on a particular individual who sells, but I realized that they usually put what's it called, this sniper in their beans. I'm like, what is this used for? I say it's used for scaring all those insects and all that. So is such kind of introduction to that kind of seedlings very healthy to consumption, or what exactly can one advise?
How can it be healthy? Sniper already is an agricultural insecticide. And when you apply it on your plant, that's what we call withdrawal. We call it withdrawal process, which means that you freeze your crops, you don't eat them within a certain number of days. Not that what you are selling on the shelf, you start spraying them with sniper, is poisonous.